Hello, welcome to Relative Rebuttal. I'm your host, Stephanie Rankin, and today we are going to be talking about retired Chief Helena Rafferty from the Canton PD and her wreck that happened on Friday, February 16th, 2024 at approximately 6:30 p.m. First, I'm going to show you a portion of the Boston 10 news report on this accident. We're going to stop a few times and have a discussion.
Chief hit someone while driving in Rentham. This happened back in February, but she's only just making a public statement about it.
The police.
Okay. So she had the wreck February 16th, 2004, and she didn't come out with a statement until April. 6 weeks after the initial wreck is when she finally made a public statement about her being involved in a wreck in a town-owned vehicle. She was in her police car. It is actually the only car that she has, or she states that she has, and she also uses this as a personal vehicle because according to her, she is always on the clock. She is always available for a call 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days out the year. And to a degree, I can kind of understand that. Small police department, she's the chief. She does need to be available at all different times if something happens in the middle of the night or on holidays or whatever. So I can somewhat understand that. However, you can't necessarily say that her personal use of the vehicle needs to necessarily be tied to her business use of the vehicle, in my opinion. But let's continue with the news report.
Chief here in Canton was actually cited at the time for failure to yield to a pedestrian in a crosswalk. Now, Rentham police released photos of Canton Police Chief Helena Rafferty's town-owned Ford Explorer that was involved in the pedestrian crash back on February 16th. Chief Rafferty says she was driving home at about 6:30 at night, attempting to make a left-hand turn from South Street onto Creek Street in Rentham when her lights caught a man in a reflective vest in the crosswalk. She says she hits the brakes immediately, but still struck 67-year-old Michael Berry of Rentham, who was walking with a cane. Berry was knocked to the ground and suffered a cut to the head. All
right, I want to stop right there for another second. She states in this statement 6 weeks after the event that she did see him in his reflective gear, but didn't see him in time to be able to completely stop the vehicle and avoid hitting him. However, in her incident report on the night of the wreck, or the evening of the wreck, she states that she did not see him before the crash. So why is there that difference? And if you truly didn't see him before you hit him, what were you doing that you couldn't see a man in reflective vest? I mean, I understand that it says in this report by the officer that it was poorly lit with only one fluorescent light, but the witness to the wreck, Roma Pritza, I think I'm pronouncing her name right. If not, please forgive me. She came up and informed him that she was the witness to the crash and that she would email a statement to him. Her statement states that she was driving on Creek Street going towards South Street, and as she was approaching the intersection, she saw the yellow reflective vest fall to the ground, realized that it was a person and the SUV had hit him. It looked like he was already in the crosswalk when he was hit. She states, if you look at the bottom of this letter, that the vest was very reflective. So how could she see it being a car or two lengths behind Rafferty, but Rafferty couldn't see it? Again, I'm going to ask, what was she doing? Was she text messaging? Was she emailing? She states that in some of her incident report. States that, let's see here, where was it at? Maybe that was in, I think actually she states that in her report to the community. That's where she states that she had been at TJ Maxx returning something, so obviously on a very personal mission at that time, not something related to work. But she does state that she was responding to some emails and other messages in that time frame. So is that what she was doing while she was driving and not paying attention? Is that why she didn't see Mr. Michael Berry and hit him? Is that the reason? It wasn't because of alcohol. She did, according to the officers that responded, requested a breathalyzer test at the scene. And when they gave her the breathalyzer test, the result was 0.0. So it doesn't look like she was actually drunk or had been drinking. But again, just because you're not drunk doesn't mean that you're not being rectful in your driving. If you're not paying attention, there's still a problem there. Let's continue with the News 10 report, Boston 10 report.
Witness said Rafferty immediately got out of her SUV and assisted Berry until first responders arrived and transported him to the hospital. Rafferty requested a breathalyzer test, which the police report and photos show registered as 0.0% blood alcohol content. She says she paid the civil citation for failure to yield, but says the only damage to the SUV was a scuff mark. Chief Rafferty did not publicly comment on the accident until yesterday, more than 6 weeks after it happened and after it had been brought to light by others. Now, Chief Rafferty's statement said in part, "I immediately notified Canton officials as to what happened. This was an unfortunate accident. Upon further reflection and considering the amount of attention that is focused on Canton, I should have issued a statement sooner." Now, the chief also stressed her continued concern for the man that she struck in this pedestrian accident, but did not provide us an updated condition on him.
Okay, so she states that she's extremely concerned about Michael Berry, and kind of have some questions about that, because if she was so concerned about him, why is she now trying to get out of responsibility from the wreck? Because here in a filing to the court after Michael Berry sued her, she is trying to get out of the wreck, stating that she was in a work vehicle, still performing work, even though she had left TJ Maxx mere minutes, and was also in a completely different area from her responding jurisdiction. She was in Plainville, not Canton. Now, I'm not from the Boston area or the Massachusetts area, so I'm not real sure how far Plainville is from Canton, but from what I can kind of see, it seems like they're not real close. So this wasn't a work-related vehicle at this point. This was her personal vehicle. But yeah, she's trying to get out of financial responsibility to this gentleman. And I also find it quite laughable that, let's go back to the incident report. It states that Michael sustained a laceration to the right side of his head and was complaining of left knee pain, and was transported to Sturdy Hospital by Norfolk Fire. Upon a little more digging, Michael Berry sustained a lot more than just a laceration to the head. This gentleman was still in the hospital or rehab 6 weeks after the wreck when Rafferty made her statement to the public. She didn't feel the need to say that he was still in the hospital. And she certainly didn't feel the need to say that he had received 9 operations at least at that point. Is that why she had no kind of statement on his condition at that point? Why was she trying to hide that? Why was she trying to hide how much damage she had actually done to this gentleman? And let's also look at some of this timing, and that this timing was, as she made in her statement to the public, that Canton PD was under a microscope and having a lot of scrutiny from the public because of the Karen Reed case. Well, I find it kind of funny that in Karen Reed's case, Officer John O'Keefe didn't have the first broken bone, and yet he was supposedly hit by the car in the same manner that Michael Berry was hit, other than the fact that he was hit from the front end of the car on the side near the headlights, whereas Officer John O'Keefe was hit from the behind on the passenger side from the tail light. In Karen Reed's case, tail light, explodes when it supposedly hits him. But in Rafferty's case, nothing's done to the tail or to the headlight. It's perfectly fine. There's just a scuff mark from the gentleman's cane, and yet that no damage to her vehicle broke multiple bones in Michael Berry and caused him to have 9 surgeries and at least 6 weeks in the hospital and rehab. And I believe there's even more. And this gentleman, if you look at some of the documents from him suing her, his claim on her, he's not really claiming anything other than medical expenses, which are at this point over 200 grand. So she sounds like such a great person, doesn't she? I mean, wouldn't you want a Chief Rafferty working in your police department? Just a question. But I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Y'all have a great night. We'll discuss more later.